there's work to be done there with government policy. There's work to be done with open source software, developing better ways of being able to transact in a peer-to-peer way, which is entirely possible on the Bitcoin network. And a lot of that is clunky and expensive right now and inefficient. So um, mining could be a potential way of people doing that too, home mining.
The most important thing for your Bitcoin journey is not buying Bitcoin, but it's how to keep them. And yes, you have maybe the right tools, but how do you actually go ahead and stick it all together so it's the most secure for you personally? Self-custody is a deeply personalized journey, and the Bitcoin way is helping you exactly finding that correct setup for you personally. They are also helping you with securing your own cybersecurity. And if you want to go one step above all that, you can even get a consultation for a Plan B residency. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Robin and you will get a 30-minute free consultation. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC-free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together. Let's get into one more topic that I think a lot of people are currently interested in, and I think will be for quite some time interested in, which is strategy, the whole treasury company space, the preferred stocks of those treasury companies, mostly I think strategy. That's where most of the attention is, and I think also where most of the attention should be. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin treasury companies at large and specifically strategy?
Yeah. So I just want to preface this with it's not Bitcoin, right? So we've talked about Bitcoin this whole time, right? Bitcoin and self-custody should be the cornerstone of everybody's portfolio and everybody's wealth, in my opinion, right? That's my opinion. You make up your own mind. Personal finance is personal for a reason. But when I was first getting into Bitcoin, I have a really good friend who's really into the TradFi scene. And I was explaining Bitcoin to him just like with this fervor of fascination that I had in the early days. And he said to me, it was kind of like the left of the bell curve kind of question, right? Or statement, because he had so little understanding of Bitcoin. He said, what happens when companies earn Bitcoin? Like, wouldn't you want to just invest in a company that has Bitcoin and continues to get more Bitcoin? And it was kind of like a light bulb switch for me, because it's like, yeah, I mean, that's like, if Bitcoin's money, the reason you invest in a company is because that company has all these metrics that you can talk about, free cash flow and forward looking earnings and all these kind of things. You value them on a price to earnings ratio based on that free cash flow. And if that cash is Bitcoin, then you're valuing them on the growth prospects of Bitcoin plus what they can acquire into the future. And I think that there's a real mismatch of valuations within the market right now, because that's not how people are looking at the treasury companies. They're not looking at the forward ability to acquire Bitcoin. And there's a lot of work in bringing that education forward, and there's a lot of work in like more and more companies just adopting Bitcoin as part of their treasury portfolio and just putting any earnings they have into Bitcoin, right? Like, this is something that like Block does. You mentioned strategy, but I'm going to mention Block for a second, which is the company that uses that has Cash App and Square. They also have they make Bitcoin miners called Proto. They make the BitKey. They have a lot of Bitcoin related things that they do, and I believe it's like 10% of their Bitcoin related business endeavors goes towards Bitcoin in their own treasury. So they're just actively buying Bitcoin with proceeds from operations. And to me, that's the future. The future is every company is on a Bitcoin standard. They're all buying Bitcoin. And that's the reason you would invest in them, is they're going to acquire more Bitcoin over time. However, we live in a world right now where that is not a reality. And there are a select few companies front running that idea massively. And one of them is called Strategy, and they have 780,000 Bitcoin, and they're acquiring so much more. And they're doing it by issuing equity, not debt. And they are paying dividends and essentially leveling out the volatility of Bitcoin. So they're taking on the volatility of Bitcoin for the potential future long-term returns of Bitcoin, and they're paying you short-term short-term value in the form of dividends, which offsets the volatility. So yeah, their most popular product is STRC, which is, again, preferred equity. It has an obligation attached to it, which is a variable rate monthly paid dividend. And right now it's 11.5%. So you could say if that was fixed, which it isn't, they would be hoping to return over a long enough period Bitcoin growth beyond the yearly return of 11.5. And what's interesting is the 11.5 is not compound annual growth, right? So it's a fixed payment. And again, it's variable. So they could lower that down at some point in the future and actually pay those shareholders less. But the growth of Bitcoin is compounding. So they buy Bitcoin. If I've measured it out, if Bitcoin grows at a compound annual growth rate of 6.5% for 20 years, it has outperformed the cost of capital by paying 11.5% to the STRC holders that entire time, because it's compound annual growth. So it builds on the last year. The 11.5 does not increase, right, over time. So it's a really interesting kind of strategy they've done. And they basically are selling this instrument that billions of dollars are buying, and they're buying Bitcoin with that on the other side. And they're front running what, in my opinion, what will happen, which is every company will be capitalized on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is money. And so they will have a huge amount of money when it is more recognized as such, and they will be able to do whatever they want. They will be incredibly powerful, which is not how companies typically operate right now. They typically operate in a very lean balance sheet, and they deploy the capital into what they believe is into valuable operations and business endeavors to increase the capital in the future, increase the cash flow that they get. And Strategy is essentially saying, we're going to increase our balance sheet, and we're going to allow our balance sheet to do the heavy lifting of growing. We're not going to buy a business. We're not going to merge, have to cut a bunch of staff, figure out how to streamline it, and maybe get some sort of efficiency gain from what it previously was. We're just going to buy Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is going to grow at some compound annual growth rate, which will out appreciate the cost of capital. And yeah, that's essentially the way I look at what Strategy is doing.
Do you think Stretch is also interesting for hardcore Bitcoiners, or like Strategy and or Stretch is also interesting for Bitcoiners that like self-custody, running their own nodes, maybe mining Bitcoin in their personal portfolio?
I think it's all about your investment time horizon when it comes to. So I do think they're very interesting, but it's really dependent on your time horizon. So the way I look at it is, if you understand Bitcoin, you will trust STRC because you understand that they're buying Bitcoin with it, and the Bitcoin will out appreciate, and they could literally just sell Bitcoin to pay you dividends over time, and it still works mathematically. So you will trust that. I mean, you're taking on counterparty risk of MSTR. But if you understand Bitcoin, you understand why the math of STRC works. So you will trust the math of it. And then really, if you understand the math of Bitcoin, and therefore you understand that and trust STRC, then why would you want to own STRC? Because you're on the opposite side of that trade, right? You're getting 11.5%, but Bitcoin's compounding at 20+%. It's stupid, right? And the reason you would do that is because you have a different time horizon. So you're thinking, okay, I have to buy a car in a year, my car, or I'm going to have a baby, or I'm going to buy a home, and I can't handle the short-term volatility risk of Bitcoin. I know it's going to outperform this instrument like STRC, but I can't risk the principal, right? And that's what these instruments, all these preferreds, have different principal risk to them based on their based on the aspects of the payment, whether it's fixed, variable, and all of this kind of stuff. So it's really about time horizon. Each one of these instruments, STRC is on the shorter end, right? It's closer to, and it's not, but it's closer to a high yield savings account or a money market fund, and that's how they market it. But it is equity, and it is at the board's discretion to pay the dividend, and they could 100% suspend it at any point they wanted to, because it's a dividend from an equity, just as you would buy a utility company, and it's by the board directing whether they release that dividend quarterly or not, and they might change it. So it's, again, the same thing with that. It's not debt, right? So it's not a money market. It's not a T-bill. So it should be understood as such, but people are definitely going to be treating it as that. But it is on the shorter end. But then you start looking at there are other instruments, right? Like STRD, STRK, STRF. These are all less principal protected and fixed dividends. STRK is convertible into MSTR common stock, so it has this sort of equity component in it. And all of these should lie, you should be able to make a model of where they would land in time preference. So if you, and again, all of this is contingent on Bitcoin working, on MSTR working. And so there's additional risk that you're taking on, and none of it, it's very damn far away from self-custody Bitcoin. It's really far away. The only thing that it's connected to Bitcoin with is the fiat value, because these are fiat instruments. And you're taking on custodial risk by investing in something that MSTR has, and you're trusting that their custodial relationship with Fidelity and Coinbase and whoever else is worth trusting. You're trusting the jurisdictional risk of it being a US-based company, and the laws around Bitcoin and the accounting around Bitcoin are all going to be favorable into the future. And there's no confiscation risk. There's so many elements that you're trusting beyond that. But I'm going pretty deep into it, but you could just look at, like, 11.5% interest. Wow, that's awesome. That's better than a money market fund. That's better than a savings account. And 100% it is. It does have different risk profiles that should be understood, in my opinion. But it is sort of leaning towards, and it all makes sense. So, like, I don't have any fear of these things not working in a mathematical way. The only fear, in my opinion, is the third-party trust, which is you're trusting the board not to suspend the dividend. You're trusting, again, the custodial relationship and MSTR. And you're also participating in a market that is much smaller, so it could be manipulated more as well. And you can kind of see that. Like, my theory is, with MSTR underperforming Bitcoin so drastically since Bitcoin peaked and prior, was because there's a lot of shorts being put on MSTR. There's a lot of puts being bought. There's a lot of hedging with something like MSTR, which has an outsized effect on the stock price because its market cap is so much smaller. So it has much less ability to handle that kind of downwards pressure. Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons to not invest, and there's a lot of reasons to invest, right? There's a lot of reasons to be interested in these products, but ultimately, again, I'll just reiterate that Bitcoin should be the cornerstone of most people's portfolios, and most people just don't realize that yet.
I think that's an extremely important point, and a point I will let sit there for a moment, because it's even if you really love what strategy has and the common shares or the stretch or the preferreds, I have my rule of first not selling the main Bitcoin I have, but like not having less than 80% of my wealth in Bitcoin. Like, people can do whatever they want with their own money, but I just came to the conclusion I want the majority, like the super majority of my wealth, to be in Bitcoin and to be in self-custody, in my control. And then there is like play money where you have like, yeah, I can sprinkle in some strategy common shares to like maybe outperform Bitcoin by 2x or 3x over the next 10 years. Let's see what happens. I can have some stretch for some income or something like that. I don't currently, but I could potentially in the future. So this is kind of how I view it. Like the cornerstone of your portfolio, as you said, should be Bitcoin. That's my main message always. But your money, your decision. I have one question that I ask each and every one of my new guests on the podcast before we go to the end routine. And the question is, what can we learn from you besides Bitcoin?
That's a good question. I don't know anything except Bitcoin. No. Yeah, I think I don't know. What I talk about on my videos is it's definitely Bitcoin, but again, a lot of the conversation we had today was really about how Bitcoin changed me. And so that reflects into what I talk about as well, right? So I think there's a lot of personal growth that people are looking for. People are looking for, help bettering themselves. And I think I have some information of how to help that some people with that. So that could be something, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a great answer for that.
Yeah, there are so many different things that pop up, and I think we already talked. Even though it was Bitcoin focused, we also talked about different things in the beginning where you made the jump and all of that. Like there's all. It's actually fascinating. A Bitcoin podcast is one of the few podcasts where you naturally have those side topics in. You know, if you have other podcasts, you kind of have to stay in that lane and experiment like with other topics slowly. But with Bitcoin, it's from day one. Like my podcasts, even the first 3, 4 podcasts, had a lot of side quests and a lot of life questions and diet things and training and workout things in them that were completely separate from like Bitcoin. Like, why do you talk about those things? And so it's kind of fun to have a Bitcoin podcast because all those side topics naturally come into the conversation, especially if you have it as often as I do. But that's just a note. We have an end routine, as you might know, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And the previous guest asked you the question, if Bitcoin did not exist, where would you place the majority of your wealth right now?
That's such a hard question. Yeah, if Bitcoin didn't exist, wow. I would have to be speculating on tech investments. I would have to pretend that I have some sort of edge on discovering where the value is going to accrue for AI, which I don't, and I don't think anybody does. Do you invest in the infrastructure? Well, that has been a good play, but will it continue to be? I have no idea. Do you invest in the models? But then the models are being competed. So, that's probably where I would be because I'm young and I have the ability to work harder, to provide income and to retire still at some point, even if I had to go to safer investments. But I think that's what you do when you're young is you make high conviction bets. So I have nothing as high conviction as Bitcoin. And I think the only other space that you would have to be involved in if you're trying to get growth from at a young age would be some other technology, right? It's where a lot of the growth accrues, right? A lot of the value accrues. Maybe it would also be like some semblance of gold, but we're never going back to a gold standard. We're never going back to money being or gold being money. So it has no future as far as the monetization properties of it. And I mean, it does in the short term. It will continue to have that for a while, but it ultimately fails as money. So it ultimately fails in the store of value function at some point when better money comes around, and that's Bitcoin. So, but without Bitcoin, that would last a lot longer, right? So maybe some gold because of the sovereignty ability of it and the store of value function that it currently has, although I believe misplaced because of Bitcoin. But without it, again, reality looks much different. So those would be my two bets, I think.
Yeah, and this actually ties a little bit into the thing I'm working on currently with my article or book. Let's see where it goes. Because if you think about that question, it is the very core of why we are so passionate about Bitcoin, because you're no longer forced to be a portfolio allocator. You don't have to pretend you like to have a second apartment to park your cash in there or something like there's so many weird things in fiat going on because the money is bad that people are buying art, they're buying old cars, like Pokemon cards, Pokemon cards. Like they are storing their wealth in real estate, in cars, collectibles, arts, Pokemon cards, and all of those things where they don't belong. And that's where a lot of the problems come from. Like why if you buy a home in 2026, why is it worth more in 2028 when you already have used it more and the technology is not as top notch as it was 2 years before when you built it? And
it's an older home too, right? It's going to need more maintenance. Yeah,
there's no reason why the value of a home should go up. Like with a car, you're also not, or like making an extreme example. If you buy a phone, you're not expecting it to go up in value. Like why does a real estate property then go up in value? Why does your rent go up in value? Your apartment did not get better.
It's
probably
speculation.
got worse.
Speculation is the only reason it's going up. Yeah.
And that's the whole, like, I think the very core of that question of like, where would you place it without Bitcoin is like, I have to like gold, like, oh, maybe real estate, maybe I buy like an apartment, like maybe some gold, maybe some tech stocks. All of those don't have the monetary premium if there's like one perfect money. And so that's kind of my thesis around Bitcoin will suck up all the monetary premium, and AI will drive down the cost of everything that we can copy. So for example, like homes and technology in general and like all of those things. So really fun, but I'm really looking forward to writing this finally down so I can look either very smart or very dumb in 20 years.
No, you'll look smart, man. I mean, you're right. Like AI, there's nothing AI can't make more abundant. Like people really haven't thought about this, but like AI touches into every field now, AI and robotics as well. So like people will say, well, like home construction, you still need laborers. Yeah, you do, but maybe the plans have been looked over by AI. Maybe the plan of when to do this and when to build this and how many people to have on job site and all of this for like big construction things, AI has probably optimized that. So like AI is working itself into very physical real world things that human labor used to do. So human
and the
labor
question
is moving away.
Like even there was this banner ad saying like ChatGPT built me that building, and it was an ad for a construction site like your jobs are safe. I don't know for how long. Like if you've seen the robotics videos where they can jump in the air and make things happen and they're running, and like it's scary how good they are now, and this will only get better from here. Like all the AI and robotics technology is the worst it has ever been right now up and in the future. 1 year it will be so much better, 2 years it will be so much better. And so I think it's a realistic outcome that there will be some company or some specialized interface where you say, hey, I want to build a home. I purchased a piece of land, make me a draft of my dream home. And then you interact with a chat, you interact with some kind of like portal, and it comes up with a plan. And then you're like, okay, build me that thing. It will hire robots, it will hire all those things, it will interact with different people, it has all the things already. And then you can just sit there, drink some orange juice, and look at how your home will get built. I don't think we're that far away from that. Like I think we are both young enough to absolutely see that happening.
100%. Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called MicroStrategy. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With MicroStrategy, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroStrategy is not selling the washer. MicroStrategy is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microstrategy.io.